Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is pushing back against comments from North Korea, accusing the U.S. of making, quote, gangster-style demands. That remark came after Secretary Pompeo met with North Korean officials on Friday to follow up on President Trump's meeting with Kim Jong-un in Singapore last month. Here's Secretary Pompeo speaking in Tokyo.
If those requests were gangster-like they are, the world is a gangster, because there was a unanimous decision at the UN Security Council about what needs to be achieved.
Joining me now is Isaac Stonefish. He is a CBSN contributor and senior fellow at the Asia Society. All right, Isaac, I want to start with Secretary Pompeo's latest meeting here with the North Koreans. The two sides described this meeting very differently. What could account for that?
I think it's the North Koreans, in this case, very much taking the upper hand and waiting until after Pompeo said something and then undercutting him by describing the meeting very differently. And it's really hard to paint this meeting as a success. Pompeo didn't even get to meet with Kim Jong-un, didn't even get to have a handshake with Kim Jong-un. And it really feels like the North Koreans are digging in and saying this is going to be a difficult process.
I mean, and the thing is, Pompeo had already met with Chairman Kim before that summit with President Trump.
Right.
So this was kind of an insult there.
Kind of an insult. This was his first trip where he stayed overnight. His third time in North Korea, but this time spent there a little longer, and he still didn't get the meeting.
Well, I want to play a clip of President Trump. This is back in June, days before that summit with Kim Jong-un.
I don't think I have to prepare very much. It's about attitude. It's about willingness to get things done.
All right. So I guess the question, Isaac, is would more preparation on the president's part have made a difference, you think?
I think different judgment would have made more of a difference. I think a lot of critics pointed out that in the lead up to this meeting, which the North Koreans have wanted for a very, very long time, the U.S. gave a lot more than it got. The United States, the world's most powerful country, North Korea, 25 million people, desperately poor, and yet we are meeting their demands as opposed to them meeting our demands. So I think, who knows if more preparation would have taught Trump that, but I think there's a lot of criticism that he received for deciding to have the meeting without getting more out of it.
Because typically the way it works is all of those details and those things that one can walk away with, each country can walk away with, those are worked out ahead of time, and then you have sort of this kind of pomp and circumstance surrounding a meeting.
Right. There's a reason why other presidents in the past haven't met with the North Korean leaders, because the North Koreans didn't work out the details far enough in advance. And Trump tried something bold, and it's too early to say how much of a success or failure it's been, but I think a lot of people are not optimistic right now.
Well, let me ask you about sanctions. The U.S. and North Korea don't seem to be on the same page there either. Secretary Pompeo had this to say about sanctions.
Sanctions will remain in place until final, fully verified denuclearization, as agreed to by Chairman Kim, occurs. Multiple UN Security Council resolutions, unanimously passed, require all nations to fully enforce those sanctions. Our three countries will continue to be vocal in reminding each country of its obligations to do so.
So, Isaac, of course, the central question is it even clear what denuclearization means?
It's clear to Americans what they think it means. It means getting rid of the nuclear weapons. The North Koreans have been fairly cagey on that point, and they also, and this is very important, they talk about the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, not just North Korea. And that's what it said in the statement that Trump and Kim signed, of the peninsula. And so that presumably would mean the U.S. getting rid of its nuclear umbrella over South Korea, the way in which it protects South Korea in case of a nuclear attack. And that doesn't seem to be on the table, but it seems like that's something North Koreans would push for.
So two very different definitions based on that.
That's what it seems for now, yeah.
So outside players, meantime, China had a very strong positive reaction to the summit in Singapore. So did Japan and South Korea, and I wonder what they're saying now.
So I think the tensions in the field of trade between China and the United States are going to have a big effect on North Korea, because it's certainly possible that China will say, okay, you want us to uphold sanctions? Nah, compromise on the trade front. And I think for Japan and South Korea, they're coming at this from a very different place. They, like the United States, do not want to see a bellicose North Korea. And after the meeting that Pompeo had, they've both been cautiously optimistic, saying, okay, we're still hopeful, let's see where this goes.
I mean, big picture, though, based on what we've seen in this apparent snub by Chairman Kim of Secretary of State Pompeo, is there a deal still in the works, or does it seem as though these talks are maybe on the verge of collapsing?
I think there's still potentially a deal in the works, and it seems like Trump has put so much political capital into this idea of I'm going to solve North Korea. That said, there's so many issues that are distracting the American people domestically right now that if North Korea totally falls apart, it's certainly possible that another issue takes up so much bandwidth that he doesn't get as hard hit for it as he would have in a normal time.
Unless he decides to start test firing missiles again, in which case that would very quickly get people's attention, I would think.
Right. It seems so. It certainly seems so.
We shall see, as the president says. Isaac Stonefish. Isaac, thank you so much.
You.
North Korea